Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptid's Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time we upload new videos. I would like to reach out and say a huge thank you to those of you who have supported Cryptid's Roost financially. We pray the good Lord replenishes you abundantly, and to those of you who will later on. We pray the Lord bless you as you do so. And also a huge thank you to everyone for always supporting the channel with your likes, comments and shares as well. It is all very much appreciated. God bless you all. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. It started with the nightmares. I'm so sorry. This awesome story is written by CREEPYFACE, aka Face Melter. If you would like to read more of their works, the Reddit link to their profile will be below in the description. It started with the nightmares, and not just a simple dream. No, I felt lucidity in those moments of deep sleep. I would be in my bed, but in the middle of a desert. A single withered and cracked tree was always to my right. The sky would be a deep red and black clouds loomed with a dark grey and purple hue. While the scenery was unpleasant, the weather was shockingly to my liking, as the dreams were absolutely immersive. My feet touched the dry dirt and I could feel the grains that shifted beneath my feet. The air was thick, though tolerable to breathe. Then came the figure. At first I would try and figure out who it was, like if I knew them from real life, but I did notice male features. He would always first appear in the distance and begin to walk towards me. I couldn't really go anywhere since the dreamscape was endless, and as you already may know, running in dreams is kind of like moving underwater. No matter where I went though, he would be in the distance. In my mind's eye, I know I told my dream body to run away from him. Far, far away. I could feel a sense of danger from the man, and if I didn't keep my distance, then he would destroy my dream body, and my real body would feel every sensation of his horrible plans for my demise. The first time he caught me, he did not hesitate with his torturous vengeance. His long fingers would wrap around my throat and pick me up in the air, and plant me down on a chair. The chair would suddenly be under me, and the clouds would morph and change rapidly as if put on a fast forward. His face was twisted into a form that my mind cannot really comprehend. The eyes sort of sunken in with a sickly pale complexion with a sharp nose angled down, and his eyes were always in an expression of focused rage. They seemed to be two large pupils focused on causing torment to its victims. He was always bare, exposing everything, which made things even worse. What ensues next is pure agony. I would be bound tightly by restraints as if they appeared at will of this man. It's always the same when he catches me. First the fingernails, then the skin from the tips. My skin would peel off like opening a banana all the way to my eyes. My fingers would be skeleton. His fingers seemed to have little razor-like hairs that would cut the flesh like tearing a piece of paper. When he got to my eyes, he would pull the right one out first and pop it into his mouth like a piece of candy. I'd watch with my left eye as he would chew on it gracefully. I would scream, and sometimes that would wake me up. It's kind of like a game. How much pain can I tolerate in the dream world? The furthest he's ever gotten was exposing my brain, picking at sections to trigger neural impulses, causing me to twitch and dance for him. He would make a low grunting sound that seemed like a laugh. and now I remember that sound no matter what I do in life. My life outside of this, however, is fairly normal. I have a good job and a girlfriend who loves me and I love her. We have been together for 3 years and I plan on asking her to marry me. We have a nice apartment in Massachusetts and are looking at real estate. The town had plenty of markets and stores for people to get what they need as well. So we don't plan on moving away as our life has been promising here. But now all of it has changed and it's now worse than ever before. We were getting some fresh produce and of course everyone had masks on because of the restrictions we now live by. Honey, what kind of vegetables do we need again? I know we need some carrots for the stew you want to make. The question echoed in my mind as I noticed to my absolute dread something wrong. Someone with no mask on and dark clothes was standing perfectly still. A familiar face. Michael? I snapped out of it. Oh, nothing, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need carrots, I replied. She asked if I was alright. I nodded and looked back to where I was staring before to nobody there. It must have been my imagination, because I could have sworn I saw the man from my nightmares in the grocery store watching me shop, planning to catch me and murder me in the wake of day. When we got home, I remember her cutting the carrots for the stew I was making, and there was a knock at the door. We were expecting her younger sister to come over and enjoy a movie or two since she was going to college in a couple of days and wanted to visit before she left. Honey, can you get the door please? She asked. I went to the door, but I felt something before I reached out to the knob. I felt a compulsion to look through the peephole. When I did, like a statue, the man from my nightmares was on the other side of the door. His shoulders were hunched forward and his face was as horrible as ever. I could feel his gaze, despite the total darkness that seemed to invade his irises, looking like 2 black marbles. I couldn't express to Jasmine just how horrified I was. I quickly looked down at the handle and saw it was unlocked. Once I flipped the deadbolt, the handle began twisting and moving. He was now pounding on the door, and I could hear that low, deep sound from the other cycle. Michael, what the hell? Jasmine walked over to me, and I put my back against the door. She was puzzled, looking at me like I was a madman blocking the door with my life. Then the struggling stopped, and there was complete silence for what seemed like a lifetime. Then a voice screamed out, "Are you guys in there?" More knocking. "Hey, open up!" It was her sister, Ashley. "Oh honey, move! Hold on!" Jasmine shouted. No, wait, I said. Call her phone and see if it's her. Michael, just do it, please, I shouted. We could hear her ringtone on the other side of the door, and I slowly unlocked it, opening the door. Thankfully, it was just her. I let her in and was immediately interrogated. I couldn't blame them. I probably looked insane. I quickly told them that I had been stressed at work and I must have been imagining things because of stress. I told her I was just having bad nightmares, at least. I didn't go into detail other than telling her it was just a scary looking figure. She asked if there was a scary looking co-worker or something stupid. I told her no and that I couldn't really put a finger on it. I've always been one to be open about my feelings and have never lied to my girlfriend. But I swear on everything that I just couldn't bring myself to tell them this thing had somehow followed me out of my dreams. I told her I will be fine and we went to bed. I did not have a nightmare this time. Just an image of what I can only describe as a temple of some kind. The next day at work, I swear on everything, as I walked to the bathroom, the man was in the building, watching me from a distance. When I finished and went to wash my hands, I looked in the reflection. There was a dark figure right behind me. I know that face by now. I darted out of the bathroom and ran to my boss's office and told him that someone is following me and I'm scared for my life. He asked if he was in the building and I hesitated. I wasn't even sure why I told my boss this. I was just terrified. Now, not only does my girlfriend think I'm nuts, my boss does as well. That's when I told my girlfriend that I think I'm being followed. Part of me wants to tell her this whole thing, but I'm just scared that she will think something bad of me and distance herself. Both my boss and her feel I should contact the police. I convinced them that the police wouldn't suffice as stalkers are persistent, but I didn't get a good look at him. Usually with things like this, you of course notify the authorities. But let's be real here. No cop could put this stalker of mine to justice. I just told him if it happens again, I will call 911 myself, and said that I didn't really know what he looked like other than a dark figure. If I created this person and somehow they are manifested in reality, then obviously this is up to me. That night I experienced something different in my dreams. I was in the desert dreamscape again, but this time there was a standing mirror where the tree would have been. The sky this time was a clear blue with clouds that looked impossibly alive. I had more control of my limbs in this dream, so I approached the mirror. I did not have a reflection. This startled me for a good moment, and I looked around for the man. No one was there. I didn't really know what else to do but touch the mirror, and when I did, it instantly cracked. I jumped back then as the mirror began breaking apart section by section and finally shattered. What remained was the wooden frame and a hollow space where the mirror should have been. There was something inside, a dark area with a light beckoning me to come closer. I did. I tipped my head inside to my right where the light was. I inched further to have a look because I wanted to see what was inside and where else was I to go. Back home and wake up? I would tell my dream body to wake up time and time again and could not. I was stuck in this perpetual and reoccurring nightmare, only now what was before me was something new. What seemed to be some sort of dark room was inside the mirror. I could clearly see a bed in the corner and some kind of shape to the right of it. There was a small light by the shape and it vaguely looked like a window. Suddenly I noticed the shape moved slightly. Despite the dark, I could clearly make that out. Then came the sounds. The same low sound I heard from the other side of our door that day rang out in my ears, and a piercing frequency screamed out. I covered my ears and closed my eyes and scrunched my face in pain. It was so loud. The man was there. I opened my eyes and backed away to see him coming towards me, one slow step at a time. I remember screaming and jolting awake in my bed. This has to stop. Jasmine is starting to get real worried now, and my boss personally told me to take a few days off. I even looked up on the internet about horrible nightmares with evil men harming you, and all searches came up to the same thing, which was a demonic possession or an alien of some kind. This is fucking insane. I decided to contact an old high school friend who dropped out to take care of her mother, who apparently used to be in a religious group and later moved away. This was almost 10 years ago. I'm not sure of her involvement with this group, but she was really into the supernatural, and I at least wanted to see if my suspicions are on the right track. I tried looking her up on Facebook and found an old profile. There was no contact info other than just saying she lived in Massachusetts. I then messaged her and got a message back 5 minutes later. "Hey, wow, it's been a long time. How are you? OMG. I replied back with a friendly greeting and asked if she was busy later today. She said she wasn't and asked for an address. "Reunion? I'm so down." She gave me the address and maps said it was a 32-minute drive, so I took the chance and went. I don't want to deal with this anymore. The small house was in a fairly secluded area with woods and open areas. The driveway was a long gravel path and her home was a cosy small cabin with a nice view of grasslands in the backyard. She seemed to be doing pretty good for herself. The house looked like something right out of a vacation brochure. I smiled as I pulled up the driveway and noticed a light turn on as I surely signalled some motion sensor. We weren't actually friends. We would skip school together and smoke weed at lunch fairly often. We never really got all that close, but she was a good friend, just on the daring side, which led me to sort of distance myself. I also remember thinking her mum was a witch, and now it would seem she became a bit of one herself. I mean, all things considered, I looked down at her welcome mat and noticed a plate on a small wooden table with some kind of crystal on there. I knocked up and the door opened. I was greeted with a spitting image of Stephanie from high school. I was shocked. She looked great, as if she hadn't aged at all. "Michael Brown? Is that you?" she asked with a sparkle in her eye and a smile. "In the flesh," I said with a chuckle. "Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice." "Yikes," she smiled. "Aren't you married or something?" She laughed. "Real funny. I'm sorry, I know this may be intrusive, but I could really use your help with something. It's kind of important, and I think you're the only one who can help me," I told her. She paused for a moment, gauging my sincerity, and obliged. "Sure, come in," her eyebrow raised as I walked past her. We sat down in her dining room, pleasant indeed. She had plants all over the house. It looked much like her childhood home, only it seemed to be just her. "Tea? Coffee? Bourbon?" she asked. "I will take a shot, please," I said. "How's your mama?" I asked with a smile. There was no reply. I haven't seen her in nearly 10 years, so the silence basically told me the answer. She walked to the kitchen and then back with the drinks. "She passed last year," she said. If she wanted to talk about this, then my matter would definitely have to wait for a bit. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Steph. She was wonderful," I said. "Yeah, it got bad and kind of weird, if I'm going to be honest," she said, and paused. I knew Stephanie enough to know when she didn't want to talk about something, she'd stay quiet. But she seemed eager to talk to someone. She seemed pretty alone, so I asked. "Weird? How?" She visibly trembled and grabbed her arm as if to calm her nerves. "Look, when we were young and you would come over to hang out, I knew you were scared of my mum for a while, and there was a reason. You may not believe this, but she was taken over by something," she said. "There was this ceremony that she was involved in. She changed after that. I didn't and still didn't know what she did, but this was literally 2 months before her death. For weeks I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night to her standing in a corner of my room making odd noises that didn't really sound anything like her. It sounded like an animal inside of my mother. She would sometimes just stare in the mirror for hours and would leave messes in the kitchen every time she made food. I would ask her why she would do these things and she would just walk away as if nothing was wrong. Then I found her dead in her bed shortly after this. She covered her face and brushed her hair to the side. Her mouth was open in shock and her eyes were so vacant it..." She trailed off and I put my hand on hers. "Steph, I'm so sorry. That's horrible," I said. She looked away from me and retracted her hands to her cup of coffee and took a sip. "But first she explained that she was terrorised by horrible nightmares. I immediately sprung to my feet. I couldn't help myself. "Stephanie, that is exactly what I am suffering from," I shouted. "Did she ever tell you about what kind of dreams she would have? Anything at all?" Her eyes widened. "Oh my!" She started to tremble again. "No, I never got anything out of her. I can't believe it. The group, they called something. Something that it should have stayed in the dimension it was in. But it answered and it took my mother's body over. It was trying to blend in, attempting to fool me into thinking it was my mother just acting strange, but..." She stopped. "But now it's interested in you." I cringed hard. "So you're telling me that this thing somehow found me and wants to take me over?" I asked. "It's quite possible," she said. "But how? I'm miles away. What does this mean? I'm scared. The thing is following me out of my dreams. I've seen it at the store and it pounded on my door." "It manifested?" she asked, while getting up and moving to her front room. I watched her and she went to a bookshelf. "Sit down. We don't have much time. That thing is probably inside of you right now. Are you free for the rest of the night and possibly the morning?" she asked. "What do you mean?" She cut me off almost right away. "If that thing is inside of you, then I'll get it out of you and purge it. It killed my mother and I won't let it kill you either." She said this seriously. So she was going to literally perform some kind of ritual to get it out? At first I protested, but she pressed that she knew what she was doing. I took a look around at her house. There were bookshelves filled with both spiritual and even scientific studies, with thick tomes on demonology. Everything was clean as well, and her plants were healthy. I felt as if she knew more about this world than anyone I knew, so I finally agreed. "I want this thing gone." I called Jasmine and asked her if she was alright. She said she was at her parents' house and was about to head home. I explained that I was busy with an old friend and that her mother died. She was sympathetic and asked if I was going to be home. I told her no, and she may want to stay at her folks for the night. She sounded concerned when she asked her name, and I reassured her that it was harmless, an old high school friend who reached out in need, and that it was something I needed to do. She remembered her name and spoke sincerely, saying that she understood, and I told her I loved her very much. I hung up the phone before feeling especially sick for lying to her. I just don't want her thinking I'm crazy, even though I really should just tell her. I think I will when this is all over. However, it would seem that this nightmare is far from over. Stephanie had me sit down in a chair with candles lit, and she had one of those tomes out. Once I sat down, she went into a back room and grabbed a jar of something black and green and began drinking it. "What is that?" I asked, but she ignored me. She went outside and grabbed that plate with a big white crystal on it and set it in the middle of the table. "Where's the Ouija board?" I joked. I do that when I'm nervous. "I know you're scared, but I need you to focus on yourself. You're very centre of everything." She began burning a stick of herbs. Sage, I think. "When you feel that thing, you tell me. Grab my hands gently and close your eyes. You may feel a sensation like a surge of energy. That will be me trying to find it. Please, try to be at peace with yourself. Think only of what makes you happy. Literally, go to your happy place. Then once you're there, stay there. I'll take over from there. Okay?" I smiled and nodded. When it began, I felt something almost straight away. "I went to that happy place," she explained, "and I immediately thought of a beach with Jasmine. The waves were gentle and she was there smiling at me." "Don't forget to breathe slowly," Jasmine's voice echoed. I did as she asked, and I then created another image of something that makes me happy. I was at my 5th birthday party. That one I will always remember. I had the most extraordinary day as a young boy, and I remembered everyone who was there. My mother, father, aunts, uncles, friends and cousins. But then there was a figure there I haven't seen before. The vision rippled and swirled, and I felt sick to my stomach. "Stephanie," I spoke out. "Hold on, stay calm," Stephanie said. I tried to, but I was feeling absolutely awful. I wanted to vomit. Stephanie let go of my hands, and it felt like my arms were weighed down with cement, but my body was seemingly paralysed. Then I was there again. The dreamscape from my nightmares. I saw the mirror was still there, but I was tied down in Stephanie's chair. The man then slowly came over out of the mirror and walked towards me. I began to panic and felt even more sick than ever. He got so close to me and he looked down at me with those piercing black eyes. The man, or thing, was just as horrible looking as before, but this time it just stood there as if waiting for me to do something. I stared back, but this thing remained still. I slowly stood up and felt an urge to reach out to it. My hand raised to its face and I was inching closer and closer. I could feel its breath on my hand. "Michael!" Stephanie called out, and the thing morphing into the dream world and everything disperses into tiny pieces of my visions and scattered around Stephanie's dining room. Everything cleared and she was holding my head up, looking at me with intensity. I noticed an excited grin for a moment, and then she let go of my head and I slumped forward. "Michael, is that you?" I snapped out of it. "Yeah, why wouldn't it be? What happened? Is it gone?" Her eyes were wide with fright. "What's wrong?" I asked. I didn't like the silence. "Michael, I don't think I can personally help you. I'm sorry. This is way out of my control. I don't think my methods would even make a difference," she said. Confused and slightly agitated, I asked, "What do you mean by that? Why?" She hesitated before speaking, stuttering a few words and then sighed. "Because you opened your eyes and your pupils dilated past the irises. They were pitch black," she finally said. "I'm so sorry, Michael. I don't know what else to do for you. I don't even think that thing is a demon. It's something else. I don't know what my mother did with her group, but I may have to bring myself to contact one of the members," she said. She had me stay on the couch and gave me something to drink. I relaxed and tried to calm down. I don't know what I did to deserve this. I wanted to go home and be with Jasmine. I wanted to call my parents and tell them I loved them and that I was sorry for being such a screw-up when I was younger. I was scared for my life. What is this thing? I remember falling asleep to be pulled into that place again. This time there was a brick entrance that had a staircase leaning down into the darkness. Stephanie was to the right of it and she waved me over. I walked towards her. "Follow me, Michael." She turned into the darkness and began walking down the stairs. I followed her and my world was engulfed in total blackness. "There's people here. They're shouting something." I slowly opened my eyes. I was in Stephanie's house and there were people around me. They had hoods up and one was holding a book. I was tied down. I quickly realised then that this wasn't a dream anymore. I was in some sort of dark room with wall lanterns and people around me chanting some strange language. It was dim and dank and I felt sick again. I began to scream, but the sickness and the confusion of where I was made me panic like never before and I gagged. I yelled for Stephanie, only to hear the chanting growing louder. The sickness was unbearable now. I vomited up in the air. Chunks were all over my face and I could hardly breathe. The chanting suddenly stopped and I could hear the people backing away. Then came the sounds of violence. I could hear shuffling and people struggling with something. I felt hot liquid splash on my chest and the sounds grew louder. I could hear bodies crashing to the walls and bones breaking under heavy pressure. I was desperately trying to spit the chunks out of my face and wave my head so I could see what that was. Then the sound stopped. I was panting. All I could hear was the echo of my breaths down the unseen hallway. Suddenly, to my shock, my restraints were released. At first, I didn't know what to do. I sat up and got more vomit out of my face and looked around. There was a body lying on the ground near the opening of the hallway, and I noticed more bodies completely eviscerated all around me. I wanted to throw up, but I had nothing left but bile that came up from the back of my throat, and I let it out. I had nowhere else to go, so I walked out to the room. I had just my underwear and shirt on, so I decided to look for my clothes. I was in some sort of dungeon and was suddenly terrified of what killed these people. But there were no sounds at all. No one there. Just me. I found a room off to the left by some stairs, and I found my clothes, keys, phone, and all my possessions were there. I looked at my phone and it immediately rang. It was Jasmine. I answered right away. "Hey honey." "Michael, what are you doing?" she asked. I could hear the panic in her voice. "I'm fine. I'm sorry if I made you worried. I'm coming home right now," I said. "What? Then why are you banging on our door like a maniac?" "Call the police right now. I am on my way home," I shouted, and I heard her say she will. Then an ear-piercing ringing exploded in my ear. The call then discontinued. I ran up the stairs and was greeted with another dead body in a room with the door that had obviously been forced open. The broken chain and padlock was next to the corpse of Stephanie, wearing those black robes. I shuddered walking out to the small brick entrance of this area to the backyard of her house, and my car was parked in the long driveway. Ignoring what just happened, I got to my car and prayed the tyres weren't slashed. They weren't, and it started up. I kept trying to call Jasmine, but it would just keep ringing. I wasn't that far, but this was insane. When I got back and parked my car in the complex, I could hear the sounds of sirens blaring in the distance. I got to the upstairs area where our door was, and I noticed a few neighbours with their doors partly opened, and some were out in the hall talking amongst themselves and focusing their attention on my open door. I ran past the small crowd and bolted inside. The smell in the air immediately made me fall to my knees. I got up and weakly made my way to the bedroom. Jasmine was nowhere to be found until I noticed the bathroom door slightly ajar and opened it. Jasmine was in the tub. Blood was everywhere. Her fingers were skeletons and the flesh peeled all the way up to her face. Her right eye was missing and her skull was broken on the left side, exposing the brain, and her face was covered with the hair that drooped from her torn and bloody scalp. I looked at the bathroom mirror to see a crack had formed, obviously by force, with a question written in blood. "Look familiar? The police will be here soon. This is my final entry. If you encounter this, I'm so sorry." Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help to promote this channel more. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit any stories you've written. You can submit your stories or encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are below. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. If you would like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.